Hi, sixth graders, and welcome to your video all about homeostasis. Before we begin, I want to make sure that it is crucial that you watch this entire video and understand the material. Preferably, it would be great if you could take notes while you're watching this video with the note page, but I understand that you might not be able to print out the note page and take the notes, or maybe even type in the notes while you're watching the note page if you don't have like Microsoft Word on your device. So I am going to put a completed note page up just so you do have the note page all filled out. However, it is better if you can fill it out yourself while you're watching the video. Of course, that's going to be better for your brain. So either way, please make sure you're watching the entire video so that you're understanding these concepts of homeostasis. It's going to be crucial for you to understand these things for the tasks and assignments that you have this week and next week. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Okay, our essential question for this video is, how does a cell stay balanced? And when we're talking about cells being balanced, we're talking about not having too much water and not having too much waste inside the cell. So what does a cell need to stay balanced? What does a cell not need, or what does a cell need to get rid of in order to stay balanced? That's your essential question for this video. Let's go ahead and begin by talking about the crucial vocabulary word, and that is homeostasis. So homeostasis means maintaining an internal, stable condition that is necessary for life. Think of it as a cell staying balanced. So homeostasis means that the inside of the cell and the outside of the cell are balanced, right? So when we're talking about homeostasis, we can think of our body as a whole, right? If you go outside and it is freezing cold, your body's going to do natural things to help keep you warm, right? Like shivering, right? And that's going to help keep your body warm or nice and stable and happy, right? At a happy temperature. Or the other way around, if you go outside and it's super hot outside, your body's going to sweat, right? To kind of cool you down so that your body stays at a nice, comfortable temperature. And the same thing happens with cells. A cell, an individual cell, is going to want to maintain a stable environment as well, so that it stays nice and balanced. And that's what homeostasis is, maintaining a stable, internal, balanced environment. So when a cell reaches homeostasis, it has just enough food, water, oxygen, and it can get rid of its waste, like carbon dioxide. So there are certain things that cells need, right? They need to take in, like food and water and oxygen. Those are three materials that cells need to have. And if they don't have enough of those things, then the cell isn't going to survive. It's going to die. And then the other way around, there's things that the cell needs to get rid of, like carbon dioxide, and if it doesn't get rid of those things, same thing, the cell's not going to survive. So those are some things that the cell needs to have just the right enough amount of in order to survive and maintain homeostasis. So there are actually several different ways that a cell maintains homeostasis, and one of them is by getting and using energy. So cells get energy from breaking down foods, and this happens in the mitochondria through a process called cellular respiration. So remember back when we were studying cells before spring break, we learned all about the mitochondria and how it produces energy from this for a cell. This happens through cellular respiration. So it is breaking down the food that we get, nutrients, right, from the food that we eat, and that releases energy. Without the mitochondria, the cell would not get enough energy and it would not be in homeostasis. Now, plants actually are doing the same thing. They also have mitochondria in a plant cell. However, since plants have chloroplasts in them, they don't have to gain nutrients from the food they eat. They just make their own food through photosynthesis. The next way that cells maintain homeostasis is by removing wastes. So when wastes build up, they can actually poison or harm the cell. So we don't want any cell to have too much waste inside the cell. That is going to cause the cell to die. So to reach homeostasis, or that nice balanced life, the cell needs to get rid of any kind of waste like carbon dioxide. How does this material get in and out of the cell? Of course, it's going to have to travel past or through the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is that highly selective barrier around the cell. This occurs in two different processes, diffusion and osmosis. Actually, osmosis is diffusion. It just is a type of diffusion that has with a very specific material. So we're going to talk about that right now. All right, diffusion is the movement of molecules across a membrane. Molecules must move in diffusion from high concentration, which means lots of molecules, there's a high number of molecules, to low concentration, which means a few number of molecules. This is actually very similar to something we learned about last semester during second quarter. We talked about how wind is formed. And wind forms when we have an area of high pressure or high molecules and an area of low pressure or low molecules. And those two differences in air pressure is what causes wind. So the unequal air pressure is going to cause the air molecules to move because they want to reach equilibrium, just like the molecules here moving across the membrane want to reach equilibrium as well. So the process of diffusion is going to happen when the molecules move from high concentration or a high number to low concentration or a low number. I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture of a cell here. If I'm drawing a picture of a cell, you should absolutely be drawing a picture of a cell also. Even if you aren't writing these on the actual note page, you should draw a picture of a cell going through diffusion on any scrap paper around your area. So here is my cute little animal cell here. And let's see, we're going to have some molecules on the outside of the cell. Let's say that these are, I don't know, let's say this is food. So maybe that's some strawberries or something that someone ate. And on the inside, we're just going to have a few of those molecules. So now we have a difference in concentration. So here we have a high concentration of molecules, and here is a low concentration of molecules. So we now can see that this is a concentration gradient, and that these molecules are going to go past the cell membrane or through the cell membrane from a high concentration to a low concentration. The same thing can happen going from inside the cell to outside of the cell. So if the cell has produced a waste, maybe carbon dioxide, and the cell needs to get rid of it, maybe we have a high concentration of carbon dioxide on the inside of the cell and a low concentration of carbon dioxide outside of the cell. This time, the molecules are going to move from inside the cell to outside the cell. Now, this is, when this happens, the substances are equally distributed inside and outside of the cell. I should change back to my other color. Equilibrium is reached, and the cell is said to be in homeostasis. So, eventually, these molecules are all going to be moving into the cell, and we're going to have an equal number inside the cell and an equal number outside of the cell, and the cell is going to be nice and balanced. We're not going to have a high number anymore or a low number anymore. It's going to be equal. That means equilibrium has been reached and the cell is in homeostasis. The other process that we were talking about is osmosis, and osmosis is actually still diffusion. It's still diffusion because it's still considered moving of molecules from high to low concentration. So it just has to do with a very, very specific type of molecule, and that is water. So anytime that molecule that's moving across the membrane is water, then we call it osmosis. If it's anything but water, we're going to call it diffusion. So I am going to draw another picture here. This is going to be my membrane. I'm not going to draw the whole cell this time, so pretend like the rest of the cell is here, but I'm just drawing a portion of the cell. And now I'm going to draw cute little water molecules. Remember, water molecules look like Mickey Mouse. And this time I'm going to draw my high concentration over here on the right side. So I have lots of water molecules over here on the right side. This is my high concentration, and I'm going to only have a few, or my low concentration, over on the left side. So now, because of diffusion, or osmosis in this case, we're still going from high concentration to low concentration. Both osmosis and diffusion are both considered so both diffusion and osmosis are considered passive transport. And that just means that they do not require energy, right? Energy. Passive transport does not require energy. It just naturally moves from high concentration to low concentration, and no energy is involved. Advanced students, you guys are going to learn about active transport later this week or next week, and that does require energy. So you just need to know that diffusion and osmosis are just passive transport, and that no energy is involved in that process. And osmosis is still considered part of diffusion because it is a molecule moving across a membrane, high concentration to low concentration, but osmosis is very specific in that it only is specific to water. Alrighty, our last thing that we're going to talk about in terms of a cell maintaining homeostasis is the cell cycle. So the cell cycle is the regular growth and, I forgot to say that in robot voice, the regular growth and division of cells, which is mitosis, right? Mitosis, what every cell knows when it comes time to divide. So the cell cycle is just how cells divide. And we learned this back when we talked about the cell theory. So cells must divide in order to maintain homeostasis, or organisms must have their cells divide in order to maintain homeostasis. Otherwise, an organism wouldn't grow, right? You all were once babies, teeny tiny babies, and in order to grow and be the size that you are now, you needed your cells to divide to create more cells. If you ever injured yourself, maybe you cut your finger or something, the skin tissue, your cells divided to repair that tissue damage. So cells must reproduce in order to maintain homeostasis, right? So that organisms maintain homeostasis by reproducing cells. And the way this works is you start off with a cell that we call a parent cell. And that parent cell starts to divide, so that cell starts to split and eventually becomes two cells. And we actually call these cells daughter cells. And those daughter cells are going to have the exact same DNA as the parent cell. So that's actually a really neat process, because the DNA, when it goes through mitosis, makes an exact copy of itself, an exact replica of itself, so that when you end up with the two cells at the end, they have the exact same DNA, the exact same instruction manual as the parent cell, so that the two daughter cells are having the exact same instruction manual, exact same DNA code as the original cell. Okay, that's the end of the video here. Your summary at the bottom should answer the essential question from the very beginning. So if you could take a moment and answer that essential question. In the questions column, you're going to write any quiz, be a potential, that could be a potential quiz or test question where the answer would be right next door. All right, see you later.